Hi, welcome to Jazz avec moi, the podcast where we'll talk about everything from life, career, and entrepreneurship from a TCK perspective. My name is Samukele Mutoni, and I will be your host. Hi everyone, today I am happy to be speaking with Naomi Haile. She is such a bright, uplifting young woman that I really just wanted to bring her on so that she could share her experience and her life with us. So Naomi lives in Ottawa. She is the co-founder of Find Your Tribe and a podcast called The Power of Why. But really she spends a lot of time talking about getting to know ourselves, our identity, and in finding that, we will be able to really figure out what our purpose is and then use that for the service of our communities. So I hope you enjoy this one. So thank you so much, Naomi, for being here with me today. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me, Michaela. I'm honored and blessed to be here.
Thank you. So for those who might not know you, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Naomi Haile, and I'm someone who really loves building community here in Ottawa and speaking to crowds about fulfillment, about purpose, and not the fluffy stuff, right, Michaela? Because I think people get kind of overwhelmed when we hear others talk about finding your purpose and finding your passion. But I think for me, it's really speaking to people about understanding when are you at your best? What are your gifts? What are your strengths? What are your talents? And how can you use that to be of service to others in your community, right? So for me, like by day, I work in international compliance for the Canadian federal government. And I've been doing that for the past 3 years, so since I graduated school in 2017. And my projects, like my passion projects, the stuff that really keeps me going is community building. So me and my co-founder, we started an organization called Find Your Tribe. And we've been running for about 19 months. And essentially we're in the midst of rebranding at this point, but our essence and our vision stays the same. So we essentially create space for people of color to show up in their truth and in their purpose. And for us, that currently looks like scheduling, networking events, hosting workshops and panel style discussions so people can, really build community in their city and also learn about how they can both level up in their personal lives and in their career. And just like you, Michaela, as you know, I started a podcast in 2017. So I interview people about their why and how they've been able to basically create with impact and by doing the work that they love. And I started recently delving into speaking, which I've loved to do. So speaking specifically to youth and young professionals as well about topics around fulfillment and just self-awareness. So understanding who you are as an individual. And then I've been on live TV a couple times last year, and that's really the thing that has led me to wanting to pursue speaking in a more serious and intentional way. And so right now I'm really about like building systems so that can be a reality in the coming years.
Oh my God, we have to talk about that after, because that's one of the things I would love to do. Like that's when I see myself like in a couple of years, what do I want to be doing? I want to be speaking, like doing speaking engagements. So
love it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So excited. But one of the reasons I actually really wanted to talk to you is even just hearing you introduce yourself. Your vision is so clear, it's so clear what you want to do and like you're so confident in it. So did you always know that that's what you wanted to do, like to help people find fulfillment, to help people like define their why? Like, yeah, did you always want to do this type of work?
No. And you're making, you know what? Like lately I've been so, it's not emotional, but I've been feeling everything, right? Like the good
Mm,
stuff, the not negative emotions, but like things like sadness, and like I've tried to not suppress feelings in the moment and as they come up. And
mhm,
I don't know why I'm getting emotional when you say that, but I think it's because my message and the stuff that I really want to help people with are the things that I lacked when I was growing up, right?
mm,
And, for my parents who were coming here from Ethiopia, came
mhm,
here with nothing. They came here with nothing. And the quote unquote typical immigrant story, but
mhm,
for them, they have gone through a lot of trauma and loss and a lot of pain, growing up back home,
mhm.
especially like when they were just about to come here, because there was a lot of conflict going on in Ethiopia. And
Yeah.
so for here, like me tapping into understanding where my parents come from and what their story is, it's so tied to our own experiences, right?
Mhm,
And I don't know, the past couple of years I've been really trying to learn more about my culture and my parents' story and where I come from, because growing up, like as a kid, I was always like one of very few Ethiopian kids, and for sure
mhm,
people of color. And so I never really understood how to tap into that and embrace being Black, embrace
mm,
being Ethiopian, because I wanted to fit in with everyone else. And so I
mhm.
suppressed those, and I wasn't confident. I hated speaking. Like even to have a simple conversation, it was something that I was so self-conscious about. And
Wow.
so it's the past couple years. I think it was my entrance into like grade 10, grade 11, going into university, when I was really working on me. And the
Mhm,
past, I'd say 14 months, and even like a couple months before that, it was, being more intentional about how I want to show up, how I want to show up in rooms, in communities, in life at the end of the day. And so I think I'm someone who really believes that how, like, our purpose, as much as I said, it's about what, like, how you are at your best. I also think it's your purpose is aligned with, the pain, like the deep pain that you
yeah.
have growing up. And that's how you want to serve people. So for me, it was not being able to use my voice and not
Mm,
feeling confident in myself. And so when I meet with youth, I find myself being gravitated to relieve pressure for them,
yeah,
of
of
you don't need
course.
to have all the answers, and let's just talk about how we can be better as ourselves. And so, yeah, I know,
Mm,
no, it wasn't always the case. To answer your original question, it wasn't always the
yeah.
case that I was so confident in what I bring to the table, but it's because of the intentional work that I have been doing to reflect and think on my
Mhm.
own about what do I want to be working on? How do I want to serve? What are the skills that I can offer people? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for
And
sure.
that's keep me rooted in my truth.
So what was the turning point then? Like, what was the moment where it clicked, where you were like, something has got to change?
Hmm. It wasn't okay. Interesting question, because I think it was a culmination of moments. I don't think there was
Mm,
one moment, but I remember vividly in 20. It was September 2018 when
mhm,
my over Labor Day weekend, when my aunt got married here.
mhm,
And I was part of the wedding in that I was a bridesmaid, and there were
mhm.
6 of us, 6 like Ethiopian girls, all of her like this is my aunt, so she had a lot
Yeah.
of her friends be part of the wedding too. And it was in that moment when I realized, wow, Naomi, you don't even know anything. You don't know anything about well, not that I don't know anything about my culture, but it was such a stark difference being in the company of these like beautiful Ethiopian women, and
Yeah.
what I'm so used to growing up, which was not that.
Mhm.
And as you know, like you were talking about your wedding recently,
Yeah.
Michaela, and how
Yeah.
like your whole family comes together and helps to make everything go the way that it was supposed to, as planned. And
Yeah.
it's a couple days of wedding. So here in Ottawa, we had 2 days. So it was a full weekend where we celebrated.
Yeah.
And to be in the company of my Ethiopian community, to be in it was an incredible energy of celebration, of food, of dancing, of culture and language, and all of these things. I was like, oh my God, how could I have gone so long not embracing exactly where I come from? And it was a moment of just beauty and emotion.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where I realized, like, I need to, by me not understanding my culture and me not embracing it by, wearing traditional clothing and having my hair in traditional albaso hairstyles.
Yeah.
It's actually, I'm leaving parts of me just locked up somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not able to show up as the way, the way that God created me. And so that was, I think, the moment of revelation where I was like, holy moly, we need to, if we want to stand in our purpose, Michaela, we need to bring everything that makes us who we are. And that was definitely one of the light bulb moments for me.
Wow. So then how are you, I guess, learning more about Ethiopian cultures and trying to immerse yourself more intentionally?
Great question. So my dad is this huge history buff, especially when it comes to like Ethiopian history. And so he's given several books to read about, the history of Ethiopia. We were a country, Ethiopia and Eritrea were countries where were once one. And then there was a war that happened that separated them. But Ethiopia was never colonized. And so for us, there's a lot of rich history there of what even happened when the Italians tried to come. And so for me, it's reading back into my history. It's spending more time at community events that we have here. So I'm part of the northern area of Ethiopia, which is called Tigray. And we have a lot of events. We have several events throughout the year where we just come together and celebrate and raise money for different initiatives. Yeah. And so being present at all of those events, so I get to continue to, nurture the relationship that I have with, especially the young people. Like that's really where I'm focused. Yeah. And then recently, one of the parents in the community approached me after attending one of our pitches for our business. And he said, Naomi, like I need you to get involved in hosting and more workshops for the young Ethiopian youth. And so that's how I'm trying to really nurture the relationships between how I even service the community here in Ottawa. So it's learning about my culture through reading, through research, but also just being around more Habesha, which is a term that we use to describe Ethiopian people and Eritrean people in the community. Yeah, spending more time there.
That's awesome. And, like it's so important. Like here, like I recently joined the Rwandan Professionals Network as well. Like trying to do the same thing, like trying to get to like Rwandan community in a way that I guess I can relate to and where I feel like my strengths are. But because we learn so much, like you having like grown up here and having gone to school here and such, and you've had some experiences, like same for us, like we can share so much to the younger people, right? Like who are going to university or even before they go to university and be like, take a deep breath and don't freak out, like it will all be okay, and then maybe like guide them so that they don't make some of the mistakes we made.
I agree. I agree. And they have each other. They have each other. Like we hosted an event earlier in January, and we, I didn't even do much promotional activity for it, but we had like 25 to 30 young Ethiopian youth who came.
Oh, that's so cool.
Okay, there's this pattern, I don't know if this is like an African thing in general, of being late. And I remember for this event, I was like, we're going to schedule that at 1. You have to be there at least 5 minutes before 1 p.m. And it's funny because one of the individuals who was part of the community, one of the parents said, Naomi, I think you should, if you want to start at 1, I think you should start it earlier. So on the poster, just advertise that it starts at 12:30 or 12. And I said, No. Why would I do that? If I say we're going to intentionally start at 1 p.m. and I need you to be there early, otherwise you're not going to come in, that's the time that you arrive. And we can't just condone this type of behavior. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise people are going to continue to do that.
Yeah.
So for this event, you can't even imagine how heartwarmed I was. Everyone came at least 10 minutes early. They were seated. We were ready to go by 1.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
They were engaged. They all knew each other, and it just strengthened the bonds that we had with them, but also that they had amongst each other.
You know what? I pray that happens to all of our meetings. Okay.
Yes. But I think just like setting clear intentions. I mean, if this is the behavior of our parents, and this is not something that we want to pass down, let's like celebrate and promote that. And I did mention that at the beginning. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that encourages us to really, it just shows, you know what it clearly identified to me, that they valued their own time. They valued my time, the other organizers' times as well, that we were going to come here to learn and be a part of each other's journey. And they made it happen.
Sure. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah, I'm really glad they actually did show up on time, because for us to every time we set up a meeting or something, that's always the question, like, do we put 1 hour before when we actually want it to start? And then there's always the whole debate that, well, if you're going to an interview or you're going to your job, you're going to show up on time. So why don't you show up on time for these events? But then it's like, it's their weekend, it's their free time. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, we have a lot of work to do on that side. I don't know what the answer to that is.
Try it. Try both.
But so is this quest for you to sort of find community, to build community, to find your place in the community, sort of what led to find your tribe?
That's such a good question. I think you identified something really important.
Which is?
So for me, definitely not feeling like I was part of any community, I think is the thing that drove me to find my people. And by people, I don't like, I know I've talked a lot about Ethiopian, like the Ethiopian community, but you know, when we use the word tribe, when we use the word, you know, community and people, I think it's just rallying around folks who believe what you believe, right? And they don't need to come from the same country that you do in order to find that in people. Yeah, and so with Find Your Tribe, Sam and I, who's the co-founder as well, we met at a networking event for Black professionals at Shopify in Ottawa. And it was that palpable energy, like I can't even describe it. And that evening, Sam went home and made a post on LinkedIn, and we're both pretty active. So I saw her post and I said, okay, I think Sam and I would really get along. If anything, we would just become friends, you know? Yeah. But when we sat down for coffee, we were both kind of experiencing being young professionals, just finishing university and trying to find our place in the work environment. And so I think it was probably 2 weeks after our coffee chat where we brought our friends together to do a video shoot about why representation is important. And we didn't overthink it. At this point, we didn't have the name. It was just supposed to be a one-time thing. Yeah. And to see the interactions between people, of people meeting for the first time and hugging and talking about resources that they have access to, and really nurturing those relationships outside and beyond that video shoot was what inspired us to host more of those types of events. And that's how the name came about. Sam's from Zimbabwe, and that term meant something to the both of us. And so we said, find your tribe. That feels right. Let's run with it. And for us, we wanted to be more intentional about bringing awesome people together. And not everyone is an entrepreneur or creative, but if you're looking for people that you can be vulnerable with, people that you can connect and have really thoughtful conversations with, this is what we wanted to create for people. And it's been growing incredibly. And I mentioned at the beginning that we're in the midst of doing a rebrand. So our new organization is going to be called Inclusively, because we feel that this represents a it represents the essence and the vision that we have moving forward, like into the coming years. Because I think Find Your Tribe definitely attracted certain types of people, and we wanted to open that up a little bit more to just have like-minded people who want to come to a space as themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's the direction that we're taking now.
So what's your vision for Inclusively? Like where do you see it going? What are you trying to achieve?
Today, well, we've been thinking a lot more about, okay, this could be interesting. We're thinking a lot more about how we can create healing spaces for people. Because at the beginning, we started off by really wanting to share our stories as women of color from our perspective in media specifically. And then we started getting pulled in the direction of like hosting professional development events. So that's how we got into workshops. And then now we are getting into more healing. So more on the personal development side, right? So self-awareness, confidence building, focused on skill building as well. And I think you know what I mean? Like this, I want this podcast to be very useful for people. And one advice around this area when it comes to the vision and the direction and where you're wanting to go, not just in your own life, but with anything that you're building, is be very careful around getting advice from the people around you, or when you're at events and whatever, very, very early on in your journey, because I think sometimes it's too early in the ideation phase to start sharing what you're working on, because then people will plant different seeds in your head about where this could go, and it could derail your initial intention with what you're building. And so for us, that's what happened. That's why we got pulled into like the tech space and pulled into diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we got pulled into professional development, and we started feeling really horrible around this because we weren't having fun anymore. We weren't fulfilled in doing this because it wasn't our initial intention. And so I think for us, what we're doing right now is really guarding that and guarding our intention with it. And which is why we are going back to our original intention, which is to create healing spaces, to just bring people together and bring the community together. So where we see ourselves in the future, we want to double down on that. And we definitely hope to create different types of spaces. So what we're doing right now is very much like metaphysical space. So how do we create environments where people can come as themselves? And something that we're entertaining is a physical space. So opening up a co-working location where people can come to work, and in the evenings and on weekends, we can have events. It can offer as a multi-purpose space where we can have people host their own events there, but really around this idea of healing and community.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like what you just said, because first when you defined it, I guess, as a place, as a healing space, I was like, oh, that's a bit different than what we talked about a couple of months ago when we initially had our first conversation. But I mean, it makes sense. It's normal. You're still working on it and you're still redefining it. And then it's the second part of what you said about being careful, listening to other people and their inputs. And even though it's always like most of the time well-meaning,
good intentioned. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. It's good intentions, but it's really, man, yeah, that was for me, because right now for me, it's like I'm going through that exercise of sort of redefining, like, what's the goal of my podcast and what am I trying to achieve? Because like you, well, initially I started thinking that I really wanted it to be about like professional development, and I wanted people to talk about what they were doing in their jobs and in their careers. And then, yes, we can talk about their side projects and stuff. But the more and more people I interview, the more I realize that we just really need a space to talk.
Yeah.
you know? And my latest interview, Sandra, she defined it as like a therapy, you know? And I was
Oh
like,
my
oh my
gosh.
God, it's so true. But I would have never defined it like that when I first started, right? So it's more like, okay, when I see sort of the feedback that I'm getting and how the conversations are naturally turning, like, what do I need to do? Like, where do I want it to go and what do I need to do? And right now I'm doing that exercise. Well, I'm supposed to be doing that exercise. I'm procrastinating, but I'm supposed to be doing the exercise of sitting down and really like redefining the vision and the mission. And it's a bit tough. And I had to say my first no the other day to a potential interview, and I was so scared. But it didn't align with what I wanted and what I was stand for.
So someone pitched you, said, I'm interested in being on your podcast, and you said, it might not be the right fit.
Yeah. And
Good.
I was freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I just said no to someone. It's all going to fall apart.
No. And how did you feel after?
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Like I panicked for a second when I had to say no. And then I was like, I'm a horrible person. How can I say no? No, 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 no. But then I was like, no, but then I'm not going to be, it's not going to serve my audience. I'm not going to be sticking to what I want the podcast to be. So I have to just say no. And it's better to say no in advance than go to the interview and say no there.
Right.
So then I just said no, like in a kind manner, and explain why and how it didn't align with the vision of what I was trying to achieve. And they understood it and it all worked out.
Good.
You know, but then also then sort of adding to what you're saying, one of the things I've noticed and why the space of what you're doing is so important is we just don't have enough representation. Like there's just not enough voices. There's not enough environments or enough projects of people doing sort of like what we're doing, which is when you start doing that, you have so many opinions, like so much advice, right? And so many inputs and insights, because everybody is trying to say, it's trying to give you like what they need, you know? And so the hard part then becomes acknowledging like, yes, I realize that as a community, we need all of these things, but what aligns to what I am trying to do and what aligns to my strengths, like you said earlier.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You know, what I found, and this might be helpful for you as well, and anybody listening, what Sam and I did in December. Was it December? Yeah, at the end of December or early January, we sat down and we wrote down a list of everything that literally set our souls on fire, things that we love to work on. And we set a list of things that we're going to say no to that literally bring us anxiety and are not serving our larger purpose. And you clearly identified. So even with the podcast, it could be topics that you love, that you're curious by. Just even if you listen to your previous and reflect on your previous conversations, just keep track of the questions that you gravitate to on the cuff, right? Like a lot of the challenges, have you always been this confident? Like it's, I think, showing the journey of individuals. Write down the topics of stuff that you are curious by and the stuff that literally do not at all align with what your audience needs and what you as an individual want to talk about. And I think that will clearly identify what you need to say yes and what you need to say no of. And it's going to be difficult, clearly. But even earlier in January, Sam and I had to say no to an incredible opportunity of hosting like a 3-part series event with a really awesome company here in Ottawa. 2 awesome companies. It was going to be an incredible 3-part series.
Yeah. And
we were planning it and we were getting sponsors and we're going through this whole process, but it wasn't feeling right. Like it felt like we were getting further and further away from our community and what we were trying to do. And we were servicing this whole other niche and area. And we had to sit down and write a very difficult email, just expressing that this exactly what you said to your potential guest, that this is just not aligning at this time. But how do we keep the door open to further collaboration sometime down the line? And it was, after sending it, it felt right. We felt at peace, and people understand. Do you know what I mean? Especially when you provide your rationale and your why, and they want to
Yeah.
support us anyway. The organizations want to support us with whatever we're working on. And so
Yeah.
it was a win-win for all parties.
That's
And you're
awesome.
not constantly stressing out about, oh my God, it doesn't feel aligned, but I feel pressure to do it. And for us, a big question was, what is our intention with saying yes to this? Is it coming from a place of ego? Because 100% this would look great on paper. Or is it coming from a place of service? And if your answer is ego, then at least for me, we're saying no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is not what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, makes sense. So tell me, so then you've also had your own podcast for a couple of years, actually, and it's really centered around like your why. How did you start your podcast, and why did you choose this particular topic?
I started thinking about the podcast in January 2017. While I was in my last year of school, I was kind of thinking about the idea. And at that point, I think especially during university, as you start to learn more about what is actually out there in terms of career options, you're like, wow, I actually have no idea what I wanted to do. So this was me in third year, where I started going to, well, like since first year, I'd been going to networking events and getting involved in the student life, but it was more intentionally in third year, where I started taking very different types of courses, like more in strategic management and cross-cultural management. I studied business for some context. And when I went to events, or when we had speakers in our class and they were saying something very interesting around, what their work days look like, I would always follow up. I am like follow-up queen.
Yeah.
Like everything is in the follow-up. When you meet a fascinating person at an event, when you hear someone speak and it really resonates with you, follow up with them. Send them an email, send them a note on LinkedIn, message them whatever platform you need to message them to get into contact, and find ways to provide value, or ask them to go for coffee. And when I was a student, and even still to this day, but I think professionals are so much more, they love meeting with young people and students who are doing the work and who want to be better. And so I sat down with a lot of professionals in finance and law, in international business, just entrepreneurship, everything, and would have coffee with these individuals. And I would have these notebooks filled with advice and their lessons experienced, and what they really enjoyed in their career and what they were fulfilled by. And I just noticed in these notes and in these conversations, I noticed a pattern amongst the people that I felt were the most happy and the most fulfilled. And it was because they knew the work, knew why they were doing the work that they were doing. And at that time, I started reading Simon Sinek's book called Start with Why.
Yes.
And I came across his TED Talk during that time, and I was like, holy moly, he's talking about specifically organizations and their why.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing in people. It's the same thing when you talk about an organizational or a company's mission statement, vision statement, all of these things can be so translated beautifully into individuals. And I had been thinking about it at that time for 8 months, about it needs to be perfect, I need the right title and all of these things. And then in August, after finishing school in August, I said, you got to do it, Naomi. I don't know what you're waiting for. And I just recorded with my close friend. Her name is Rebecca. And we literally sat down in her living room. I recorded on my cell phone. Yo, we don't need to be fancy, okay? I recorded on my cell phone. And we talked about her transition from school into consulting and what her experience was like. And it was just a simple episode. And then I kept going from there. And I started reaching out to people that I didn't know. Obviously, like at the beginning, I was more comfortable with individuals that I had built and developed a relationship with.
Of course, yeah.
But now I reach out if I vibe with you, if I like your message and what you're about, and it aligns with the podcast. I don't
Yeah.
care if you're in London, UK. You're getting a message from me,
Yeah.
and if something that you're interested in, we're making it work. So I've interviewed people all over the world, and now it's so cool. Now I get requests to like inbound requests from pretty awesome people
That's
who are
awesome.
interested in being on the podcast. And yeah, I think the thing that I really want to get across with, even I like how you said where you started, because
Mm-hmm.
I think it gives people context for it wasn't always this. It didn't start from very big beginnings. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm.
simple. It was on my phone. I think I had a mic at that time that I spent
Yeah.
like $100 on,
Yeah.
and you just gotta hit the ground running. And it was horrible. Like the first video was so bad. If you go back to my YouTube videos, you can see the interview there, and it's oh my god. But you have to get out there. Like if my first episode was this high performance thing, that means that I started too late. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
of
mean?
course.
And
Of
so
course. Of course. Mm-hmm.
very, very simple beginnings.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I just bought my mic like now in
Yes.
January. All the episodes before, I was just using my iPhone like
Yeah.
microphone mic,
Yeah.
and that's what I was using, and it was working. And then I was playing with different systems like yes, Zoom, and then like all of these other ones, trying out to see like what works for me. And I'm sure I'm going to make a few changes still on with a couple of things. By the way, side note, I really like your website.
Thank you.
That's one of the things I'm trying. I want to work on. And then I was on it earlier. I was like, oh my god, it looks so good. So, so I
I
really
love it.
like
It's
your
on
website.
WordPress. It's on
Yes.
WordPress.
Oh, that's okay. That's cool. I was trying to figure out like what theme is it? Where is it hosted? Because my website is hosted on WordPress too, but I need to do more work on it. But yeah. Start where you are with what you have. I truly believe that. And then the other thing as well to add to that is that if you don't start, you don't know what to adjust, right? Like you could have the most perfect plan, but then when you actually try to execute it, that's when you start realizing what works and what doesn't work. So you might as well start early and then adjust as you go, right?
Preach. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Please say that again. Say that one more time. Say it one more time. I think it's such an important line. Oh my goodness.
It's true. Yeah, with start and then you can adjust as you go, right?
Yes.
Because you never know what's going to work or what's not going to work if you don't try it. And it's the same. I learned the same thing actually in school. So I took some entrepreneurship courses, and my entrepreneurship teacher, he was like, yes, you need to build a business plan. But he was like, but don't spend too much time on the business plan because once again, you're not going to plan for everything, right? And at the time, I didn't understand it because it was like, well, the idea of the plan is just to figure out what you have and what you're going to be good at and versus what you don't have. So at least you know, right? You know, like, oh, these are potential areas of weaknesses. So when you start working, it's not going to like swipe at you from nowhere. But he always said it that the actual real business plan would be like the adjusted plan. It would come after like a couple of months of activities or maybe like a year of activity, because that's when you've sort of tried it and you've sort of gone through that same exercise that you and Sam went through, right? Of saying, okay, we've done this a couple of times, but now how do we adjust it? Like, is this really what we want to do? Or do we want to change it and do something else? And then if we change it, what is it going to look like, right? Same for me, where I'm now going through this phase of, okay, I've done this for a couple of months now. Is it good enough? Like, what can I adjust? How can I make it better? And all of that stuff, because now I know, because now we've tried. But we could have written the best plan ever, but had we not actually tried it, we wouldn't have known, right?
Agreed.
I'm a planner by heart, so I'm trying to practice this lesson, because you cannot plan everything. Because there are some things you don't know, like you just have to live them and then go through them and then you adjust, So yeah, so that's what I'm practicing right now. What do you find really hard about this process right now, like what you're going through?
Patience. Patience.
You and I, yeah.
Oh my gosh, because it's not at this point, it's not even the execution and like putting myself out there that I'm struggling with, because I'm like continuing to develop that muscle by putting content out there and speaking at events and that sort of thing. So for me, it's patience. And I
Hmm.
don't like, I'm really trying to write and reflect about why I'm struggling with this so much of, you know, doing something for a certain amount of time and then expecting a result. And I don't know where it comes from. This is something that I'm still trying to navigate, but not everything needs to happen in a year. Not everything needs to happen in 2
Mm-hmm.
years.
Yeah.
And it's giving myself the space and the the comfort in realizing that whatever that I'm trying to build, it'll it'll happen in 20 years, it'll happen in 30 years, and being okay in that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think too, one there's this just mantra that I've been hearing more about. I really love Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's this entrepreneur
Yes.
out of New York. And
Mm-hmm.
something that he says a lot that resonates with me. But one thing that's helped me in this season is micro speed, macro patience. So in the day to day, in the day to day, you better be moving fast and like building momentum and sending those emails, making those cold calls, putting yourself out there, practicing. But
Mm-hmm.
in the macro, it's having this patience that it is going to take you 20 years to get to where you want to be, and not
Yeah.
trying to rush the big picture. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so
Mm.
that is almost like a push and pull between two parts of me that I need to find like a peace and a serenity in. And so that's something that I'm working on, is not everything needs to happen tomorrow, but
Yeah.
today I need to do the work so that I'm ready when it comes in a couple years.
Yeah, for sure.
And that definitely has been something that's eased my anxiety and my jitters around having everything right now. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what? Like, I think culture also plays an important piece in that too.
Mm.
Just our use of technology and how technology is evolving as well. It almost perpetuates this hustle culture, and
Of
I
course.
think
Mm.
entrepreneurship and all these things are being glamorized. In a couple of
Yeah.
years, I don't think it will be. And it's just going to be this cycle that we're going to constantly go through. But at our own cores, what do you want to be working on when it may not even be the popular thing? Are you doing it because it's popular, or are you doing it because you love it?
Yeah.
And something that I've really learned from Gary is that, for him, he's always been a builder and an entrepreneur from a very young age. And during the time that he was growing up, like in elementary school and high school, it wasn't glamorized to be an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. In fact, it was like you were the losers and you were the confused ones.
Yeah.
And now it's become this popular thing where everyone and their sister wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, like, are you doing it because you want to, or are you doing it because it's actually who you are? And
Hmm.
so I think that's a huge piece when it comes to patient. Is it are you valuing, am I, as I'm going to say it as me so it makes it more real, am I
Yeah.
valuing the opinions that other people have of me and how I should be over who I actually am? And I think that helps with the patience piece, because if I want things to happen today, is it because I want to prove something to other
Mm.
people? Is it because I want to prove something to myself? But, I have confidence in it's going to play out the way that it needs to.
Yeah.
Today, just focus on doing the work. Everything else, like the hard work, will take care of itself, and it'll take care of me in the future. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
that's something I'm
sure.
working on.
That's good. And you know what else I like about Gary? It's that he, like when he's challenging people with the whole micro patience, micro speed. I didn't know. I like that mantra. I didn't know it, but I've seen interviews where he's like, "Do you think I came here in 5 years?"
Yes.
And then when he tells people like, "No, it's taken me years, guys. Like it's taken me like 20 years," you know.
Yeah.
So he's really good at calling out like, yeah, like it took time, so be patient.
Mhm.
Um, and then what I've started doing that maybe would help you or anybody else, because I am also really practicing patience, is reflecting. You said you were writing, right? So reflecting on, let's say 5 years ago or 4 years ago, what was I hoping for? Like, what was I praying for? And where is it now? Sort of realizing like, okay, so where I am now, like I'm quite happy with my life, thank God. But like it didn't happen yesterday. You know what I mean? Like I was working on the stuff now, like 5 years ago or like 3 years ago. But, and so when I reflect on that and I'm like, oh yeah, it took me 5 years or it took me 3 years or it took me 6 years to be here, then for me, it makes it easier to say like, okay, then what I'm working on now, I'll probably see the fruit in 6 years or in 5 years. Because I know that for the today, I didn't get the today yesterday. You know what I mean? Like literally.
Right. I like that a lot. I'm definitely going to do this exercise.
Also, it helps you see how you've grown, I think, and how you've changed as well. So I found it really helpful. And when I'm starting to feel impatient, that's when I start to do like, okay, this is the progress we've made so far. So
yes, you need those constant reminders, right?
Yeah.
I agree, Michaela.
Because we're always like looking to, at least I know myself personally, I'm always looking to the what next. And it's like, okay, so we've done this now. Like, you know, like I just started a new job. So now it's like, okay, what's the next job? But it's like, wait, but I haven't even done my job.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, wait, 2 months ago I was crying about a new job. So
I agree.
So like, yeah.
It's perspective, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like sometimes we really just need to sit down and take notes and like have some perspective. And then it helps you sort of put things in context and realize that you're not in such a bad spot after all. Or if you are in a bad spot, then it's like, well, what have you not changed? You know, what have you not corrected so that the output is a bit different? Yeah. What do you enjoy the most out of this whole process?
You know, for me, it's I love building relationships with people who are creating ecosystems, who are creating businesses, who are creating spaces for people to be themselves. And I think from a very early age, I've always optimized for this, just talking with people, connecting at events.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've enjoyed more and more over the years. And definitely, yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't get and interviewing people. I love interviewing people.
It's a lot of fun.
And it's so good. Yeah. It's so much fun. It's so much fun learning about where they've been and where they are now and how we can really get those messages across to younger people.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, but even reflecting back on my own, like the stuff that I was doing a couple years ago, I would watch hours and hours and hours of interviews, and like especially of people in the entertainment space, because I feel like we only see their art, we only see their music or their movies. But when I found an artist or an entertainer, by artist, I like everyone is an artist. I really believe that. And so if I found like a musician that is creating very powerful music, and I've always been very quick to want to know more about who is behind the music. And so I'll find an individual, for example, and I'll go and watch every single interview that I can find of them. And to do that, it just gave me so much context and story and life that is behind what we experience. And I think artists are these incredible beings who have tapped in so deeply into an emotion or emotions or the human experience in a way that makes people emotional. It makes people see themselves differently, see others differently. And the amount of music that I believe that has saved people's lives is insane. And I have found this a deep fascination of trying to get to know those people more. And so people that I've really want to highlight are people like Logic. Diddy is someone that, like P. Diddy is someone that I'm looking into now. Russ. Okay, I love rappers, but Russ is an incredible person who preaches about self-sufficiency and doing the hard work and doing your research and like just plain and simple hustle. If you want to do this, work your butt off, but do it strategically. And I love how he talks about how he got here. And there's a science. There is a science behind, I think, quote unquote, making it, and especially making it in certain industries. And who else? Tiffany Haddish. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
she's hilarious. I love her.
Her story is so sad. How she grew up as a child, like being in the foster care system, her mother being in an accident where she couldn't even like talk, walk, eat on her own, like everything that she taught Tiffany
really
up until
rough.
the age of 9, she was going back and teaching her mother, being abused, like being homeless, living out of her car, like all of these things, and we only see the final product. Do you know what I mean? And so going back into those interviews is something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, that's true. And that makes so much sense. You ask some tough questions, huh? Like for people who haven't been on your podcast yet, they should go listen. But you ask really good questions. I was sitting and reading some of mine, right? Because we're going to do my episode next.
Yes.
And I was like, I was like, this girl does not play. I have to think about
It's a great exercise.
It is a great exercise. I was like, I have to really think about this. Like, but it's great. It's great. I love it because, like you said, I think it really, the way you ask questions really forces people to go deep, you know, and to really look for their why, their answer. Their why they do what they do, and what their purpose is in the world and such. And I truly believe that we all have something to add to the world. It's just a matter of figuring it out and just doing it, which of course sounds easier said
than
done, you know. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In 5 years? Oh my gosh. Okay, so this goes back to the question about visioning, you know, that we've been doing with Inclusively and Find Your Tribe. And for me, I started reading this book by James Clear. He talks about habits, how we build effective habits. And one thing that like I felt in my gut, I'm not even kidding, Mikela. He said this thing. He said, we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems. And I was like, interesting, because people who, like, you can just imagine the people who have goals of being the greatest and the best at XYZ, but they fall short because they haven't put in the practice and the diligence and the hard work and the systems to get them there. And so for me, I'm so not like, I have my greater vision in place, but I don't really think about myself in 5 years. I think about how the intention that I want to have. And honestly, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing just at a higher level. So I see myself speaking internationally. I see myself speaking in Ethiopia, in Dubai, and Australia. I'm going to put it out there. Across the US, across Canada, just getting my message across. I really want to double down on this community building efforts and bringing people together around a common purpose, really focused on how we can heal ourselves as individuals. And I would love to write a book, like become an author, and take these lessons that I'm learning from other people and highlighting those stories and those incredible individuals who are creating the life that they want to live. So I'd love to document that just in very different forms. Like the podcast is one. I'd love to do it through TV. I really, really love TV. It's very nerve-wracking, but there's something about being in the light and in the limelight that I really enjoy. I don't know why, but like before I remember, so I did a few TV things last year, and before going up, like live TV is a whole other beast. And so they have someone talking into your ear, and they're basically guiding like the whole newsroom. Yeah. And then they'll say like, Naomi, go up in 30 minutes or in 30 seconds. And right before I was going to go up, I forgot. I literally ran a blank. I forgot everything that I was going to say. And then as soon as I sat down in the chair and they went 3, 2, 1, it all came back to me. Of course, everything came back. And I was just in the moment and I was enjoying myself. And I think there's something about that high pressure experience that demands so much more from you. But that's where your practice comes in and all the work that you've done before to make you ready to be in that position.
Yeah,
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
And
Yeah.
so where I see myself in 5 years, I guess I'll have to say, continue to be community building, speaking at the national and international level, writing a best-selling book, continuing to share this message and connecting with people who are living life on purpose.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited for you because I can see you doing all of these things. And I'm going to be like, I knew her when she was working on this, guys.
Oh, Michaela, thank you, my dear. And I can't wait until we're like all there doing the work. Like, that's why I'm so adamant about building with my peers, building with people like you, and collaborating with other folks. Because, you know, in 20 years, we're going to be the CEOs. We're going to be the, you know, heads of nations. Like, and so when you're able to develop those relationships early, it's so cool what life could be.
It's so amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And then that quote you said about falling to the level of our systems, man, I felt that. I was like, because lately, it's funny you said it. When you said it, I was like, okay, that was for me. Because I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, well, I am a true believer in habits, right? I read this book called The Power of Habits a few years back, and it truly changed the way I approach my life, because we are the result of our habits and our systems, you know. So I've been thinking a lot about that lately. Like, I need to rethink some things in the way that I work and such. But yeah, so this was a great reminder of that. Oh my God. Okay. What would you say to your younger self? Like the Naomi of 5 years ago, let's say, when you are having all these moments of doubt, and yeah, maybe 5 to like 7 years ago, what would you have said to yourself?
5 years ago, 7 years ago, how old was I? I was 16.
Yeah,
and that was such a weird time in my life, because I started university at 16. And because I grew up in Ontario, in Ottawa, and then my last 2 years of high school, so grade 10 and 11, my family and we moved to the Quebec side. And so I did finish high school here, and we finished in grade 11, as you know, and I decided to go to university right away and study finance. And it was a very confusing time, because only 3 people out of my whole graduating class decided to take that route. And me and my best friend were attended University of Ottawa. We studied in different programs, and I was like, I'm literally here alone. I'm here alone, and I don't know anybody, and the classes are so big, and am I supposed to be here? Like, I had a lot of self-doubt during that time. And so something that I would say to her is, trust the process. Trust and believe that you are exactly where you need to be right now. Continue to double down on learning about who you are and how you want to show up, and create your own opportunities. Like, university is the beautiful and incredible time to explore without too much pressure. Do you know what I mean? Of being out in the quote unquote real world. And any advice I would give to people who are currently in school is like, and even at any time in your life, explore, ask questions, meet new people. And so I did exchange when I was in university, because I wanted to try something different and experience a new country.
Where did you go?
I went to Bergen, Norway. Beautiful place. Beautiful place surrounded by these incredible mountains, and they really value family and nature there. And, you know, for me at that time, it was so enlightening to be somewhere else. That was the first time that I traveled alone. I'd been to Ethiopia before, but it was the first time that I traveled by myself internationally. And I came back just being like, holy shit, like nothing went the way that I planned, but I was able to figure it out. And my last couple days there, we had a few days before I was going to come back home. And I was like, I'm already here. Let's go to Denmark. Let's go to Sweden. So I just went by myself.
Yes.
And I called my dad and I was like, I want to do this. I'll be safe. I'll be good. I'll book hotels and let's just go. And so trusting the process, really building the confidence by doing stuff that are outside of your comfort zone. That's what I would tell younger Naomi. Everything's going to work out.
Yes. And actually, that's also still so relevant for all of us today, right? Because half of the battle is just trusting that what you're doing will work out eventually.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
You can find me at naomihaile.com. That's NaomiHaile.com. I'm also on pretty much every social platform. So Instagram, Naomi A. Haile, Twitter, connect with me on LinkedIn, guys. I like LinkedIn a lot.
You do, actually. You're quite active on LinkedIn. Huh? Like, and I like how you have your whole life on LinkedIn. Like, that's something else we have to talk about. Like, there isn't like, oh, this is my passion project. No, even your passion project is good enough to be on your LinkedIn.
Oh, so, yes. Oh, yes.
It's like, oh, lessons from you. But yeah, sorry. So LinkedIn.
I love LinkedIn. Instagram. I'm super active on Instagram, Twitter. But as much as I love these social networks, really important to have a website, something that you own that is a home. Otherwise, your business, your ideas are homeless. So get a website and share what you're working on those platforms, and just use social media to bring people to your home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so I highlight a lot of the work that I'm doing on my website. I'm in the midst of getting a new website and designing new stuff. So that is expected to come probably in February or March.
Awesome. Exciting. Any final words?
Thank you so much for creating this space and this podcast to talk about shit that matters. And I just want to encourage other people to just always remember that you know, how do I even say this? That an older person, you know, yourself in 20 years is relying on you to be smart right now, is relying on you to work hard and be diligent and double check your work and just hustle in the way that feels right for you. Not because of what everybody else is saying, but hustle according to what your dreams are, and start small. So just remember that older person, like I am always thinking about 7-year-old Naomi and what she is feeling and the life that she leads. And it's 100% determined on what I am doing today, because all of those things ripple into stuff that I'm doing actively day by day, ripples into what my life is going to be in years to come.
Yeah,
right? So
100%.
Think deeply about the older version of you and how they are relying on you to be smart.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michaela. I appreciate
Thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you for being with me today.
Absolutely.
Bye. What did you think of the conversation that you just heard? Don't hesitate to leave us comments on the Facebook group or on the website, jazzavicmar.com. As the old adage goes, sharing is caring. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, like and subscribe. Until next time, keep striving, keep thriving, and keep shining.